Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Naruto was now on his return trip to Konoha and Jiraiya figured it would take them around 6 months before they would return to Konoha. They had kept a fairly low profile for the last couple years. Naruto had known that he had grown over the past 2 years and at age 15 he was a strapping youth, at least according to Jiraiya. So where to next, Ero Sennin? Naruto asked. Jiraiya chuckled, making Naruto worried that he was going to go on a peaking binge. Naruto, my boy, we are going to a place that defies the imagination. Where there are beautiful women and co-ed baths, he stated with too much enthusiasm for Naruto's tastes. Naruto just rolled his eyes. How is you chasing after women going to help me with my training? He asked. Jiraiya clapped his hands, as he then rubbed them together, and grinned manically. My boy, we are going to make you a man, he enthusiastically replied. Naruto gave the old pervert a confused look. We are going to find you a girl to make you forget about that pink-haired one back in Konoha, for a little bit anyways. I also need to do some actual research. We are going to be looking for the Jinchuriki of Waterfall, he explained. Naruto wore a smile across his face. I've been to Waterfall before. We helped protect the hero's water, he explained, and then his look then turned sour. Why would I want to forget Sakura-chan? He asked. Jiraiya gave Naruto a warm smile that put his arm over Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, be honest with me. What are the chances you and her are ever going to get together? He asked, the sadness evident in his voice. Naruto looked surprised up at Jiraiya, and asked, what do you mean? Jiraiya looked up and smiled. You know, there is one woman in the world that I've ever loved. She only sees me as an idiot. I don't want you to make the same mistake. There are other women out there, you know. He queried. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya, sadness evident in his eyes. So does Ba-chan know? Jiraiya was shocked, and asked, how did you know it was her? Naruto smirked at the question. You, like me, let yourself be hit. It makes them feel better, he explained. Jiraiya chuckled at his student, if he only knew. You're right, but there is more to it than that. If you ever tell her I told you this, not even your three-tailed state will help you. Both she and I would kill you to keep it secret, he said. Naruto became excited, and asked, really? What happened? She had a child, but it was during the war I mean she had to give him up, Jiraiya said, as Naruto read the sadness in his eyes. He was your son too, wasn't he? Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded, as a tear rolled down his face. I don't talk much about it, as it is too painful, and the reason why I want you to learn that there are other women out there. I learned it too late in life. She loved me, but not in that way, Naruto. Do you understand? Sakura will not get past your ignorance and personality quirks. Harem and I spent one night together. It was more of a trial, and it didn't work out. I've longed for her ever since. Eventually she found another and I found that I could only satisfy my need for attention with being with other women. You're a special case. You're a Jinchuriki and the village has not treated you kindly, Jiraiya admitted sadly, as Naruto scowled. Even so, you have persevered. I'm proud of you, Naruto. You're like the fourth in a lot of ways and well on your way to becoming a great Hokage, he admitted. Naruto blushed at the compliment. Thanks Ero Sennin, he said thanking him. Naruto and Jiraiya became aware of several other presences. Jiraiya looked at Naruto, as he then smirked. Good, you felt them. How many? He asked. Naruto looked around. I feel 4, and one has a very strong presence. They are making themselves known now, he commented, as he and Jiraiya both took defensive stances. Suddenly a lithe girl wearing white pants and a white tank top, with pale green hair and red eyes, jumped down in front of the two. Halt and state your business, she ordered. Naruto became mesmerized with her red eyes, but soon shook himself out of that trance. He looked the girl over and thought that she was cute. He also noticed the waterfall Hitatai on her right arm, and relaxed visibly. Naruto looked at Jiraiya, who nodded. Uzumaki Naruto and my sensei, Jiraiya of the Sannin. We are looking to stay for a little while here in Waterfall, to do some training and then move on, he answered. As he never lost eye contact with the girl, he also felt something familiar, but couldn't place it. Her eyes looked sad, but her face only showed happiness. Welcome Uzumaki Naruto, hero of Waterfall. We welcome you and hope you enjoy your stay. Please follow me, as we lead you to the village, the girl said, as three others dropped from the trees around the pair, and bowed deeply. It has been a while, Uzumaki-sama. You certainly have grown, the girl nearly growled out happily. Jiraiya smirked at the way the girl was treating Naruto. He nudged Naruto only to notice him watching her swaying hips, as they walked towards a huge waterfall. Jiraiya grinned lecherously. You think she is cute, don't you, Naruto? He asked, as he watched Naruto's face go red. Maybe we can ask her to train with us. He prodded his student, as his student turned even redder. The girl turned and noticed Naruto's gaze and blushed, as no one in the village would ever look at her that way. She then said, I would enjoy training with Naruto-sama and Jiraiya-sama, if my duties will allow it. My name is Fu, by the way, the girl said. Naruto wore a look of frustration and confusion, and asked, why are you calling me, Sama? Fu giggled at his question. Because silly, you're revered here, as a hero, and thus you deserves the title of, Sama. I also think you carry yourself as a, Sama, should, she said proudly, but Naruto missed the blush that graced her cheeks. Jiraiya on the other hand did not. So, tell me Fu. What did Naruto here do that was such that he deserves to be revered as a hero? Jiraiya asked, actually wanting to know. Fu cleared her throat and began. A couple years ago, Naruto-sama and his team came to Waterfall on a simple cleanup mission, she explained, as Naruto scowled at being called Sama. Yet again, she ignored Naruto's scowl, then continued, in the end Naruto-sama protected the son of the village chief and also the hero's water. I was merely a genin at the time and watched the fight from a distance, as there was no way for me to get involved at the time. When I saw his strength and power, it woke something within me. Thanks to Naruto-sama I was able to find the power to become a chunin of my village. Thank you Naruto-sama, she said affectionately. This finally got Naruto's attention. Naruto looked at the others in the waterfall group. He saw the looks of both disgust and distrust, as they glared at Fu. This reminded of him of how he was treated in Konoha. Naruto got the idea that she might be who Jiraiya was looking for. He would have to let him know about this later. So are we going to be blindfolded, as we enter the village? He asked. Fu turned and smiled. You know us well, but as both of you know the way into the village we will not have to do that. Also there is someone who would like to see you Naruto-sama, besides me that is, she smiled warmly at Naruto, but he also saw the pain and longing in her eyes. The group quietly proceeded past the waterfall and through the caves and into the village. The group led Naruto and Jiraiya to a nice cottage on the lake shore. Naruto noticed that some of the damage done during the fight was still evident. Fu saw Naruto wince, as he surveyed the damage that was still evident, and said, we do not hold you responsible Naruto-sama, as we know you did all you could to help us. You helped defeat a Junin under the influence of the hero's water, quite an accomplishment for a genin. She praised Naruto, but noticed him wince at her mentioning him being a genin. I will leave you here in this house and return when the leader has a chance to speak with you. I will see you later Naruto-sama, she said, as she winked at Naruto and left. Jiraiya's jaw dropped, turned to Naruto and asked, "Can't you see she likes you?" Naruto looked at Jiraiya, as if he were insane. "What do you mean? She seems nice enough, but I'm after Sakura-chan," Naruto countered. Jiraiya set his pack down and turned to Naruto, and said, "Doesn't hurt to look around and see what is out there." Naruto huffed in frustration, and replied, "If it will get you off my back then fine, I will ask her then." Jiraiya rolled his eyes at his student, who was clueless about women. Fu entered the chief's building and was greeted by glares as she entered the chief's office. Fu reporting, "The guests are settled into their bungalow, and are expecting your summons," she reported. The young man in the chair looked up, but wore a frown. "Thank you, Fu-chan. The council has heard and are now going to have a meeting. I think that you may come up, along with our hero." "What are your impressions of the pair?" the man asked, as his demeanor softened. Fu smiled wistfully, and blushed, as she said, "Naruto-sama has grown a lot since he was here last. I might even say that he is attractive," she admitted with a blush. "Jiraiya-sama doesn't act as his status would show. He acts more like an old man. I can tell though that he is hiding something." The man nodded, and said, "Good, your observation skills have improved. Go spend some time with Naruto-san and get to know him. He is more than he appears," he suggested, as a smile broke across his face. Fu looked surprised at his statement. "You want me to get to know Naruto-sama? Are you trying to recruit him into the village or ship me off to Konoha?" she angrily asked. The man shook his head. "No, Fu-chan, I don't want either," he said, but his tone then softened. "Fu-chan, you are spurned by most if not all the village for what you carry. I just want you to find another friend. I also know that Naruto-san is lonely too. He pines for his teammate, but she does not return his affection. If you get together with him I will not be mad, I would actually be happy for both of you. You're my friend, but my position will not allow me to help you any other way. The Shichibi sealed within you causes fear in people in the village, and I know that Jiraiya-sama might actually be able to help you with controlling it to some extent. Also, Naruto-san seems to have a special way with people. You would do well to become his friend, if nothing else," the chief said. Fu moved forward and slammed her hands on the desk, "But Shibuki-sama, I have accepted my lot in life to be alone," she yelled, but the tears running down her face said otherwise. Shibuki sighed, and then said, "Go speak with Naruto-san, I'm sure he won't judge you for what you carry, and if he does, it will be insightful to say the least. Now go, I have a meeting to attend," he ordered, as she bowed and left the office. "I hope you can help her, Naruto, like you helped me." Shibuki entered the council chambers and the group seemed more lively than normal. He wondered if the news of Naruto and Jiraiya had them acting like this. He sat down and began to speak. "I call this meeting to order. Is there any business from last meeting that carried over?" he asked, as the others shook their heads. One of the council members stood and she gained the attention of the assembled council. "I wish to speak on the matter of the hero Uzumaki Naruto appearing in the village." Shibuki nodded, and asked, "What is it that you wish to discuss, council member Kaori?" Kaori nodded, being acknowledged, and asked, "Is there any way we can persuade Uzumaki-sama to stay here in the village?" Shibuki shook his head in frustration. "He is a Konoha shinobi and we would be hard-pressed to get him to stay for any reason. He is also very hard-headed and not one prone to being manipulated," he answered. Kaori took a thinking pose. She then appeared to have an idea. "What if we offer Fu as a bride? How could he refuse such an offering?" Several of the other members scoffed at the idea. Shibuki chuckled. "Easily, he is infatuated by his teammate, Haruno Sakura. It would take all of Fu's charm to try to snare him from her. She isn't too good with people, mostly because of those of you who are older, he said angrily. One of the older members coughed. How could you offer that monster to our hero? Kaori and Shibuki both glared at the old man. Kaori took a deep breath and then spoke. Fu is the only girl in his age bracket, or one who isn't attached. She also could use the companionship he would offer. Thanks to you old folks, she is alone and feels she should be that way, she said in attempt to shame the older members of the village council. This caused the meeting to degrade down to an out-and-out argument. Fu felt a chill run down her spine, as she attempted to do a simple water jutsu, as she stood out on the lake. I wonder what is going on and what does it have to do with me? She asked no one in particular. She felt a presence coming towards her on the lake surface. She turned to see a black and orange blur heading her direction. She smiled. As she could tell it was Naruto, she also felt a blush begin to cover her face. Naruto slowed and stopped right near her. He noticed her blush but mistook it for a fever. He reached over and touched her forehead. Are you okay? Are you running a fever? He asked in a concerned voice. She smirked, and said, I do have fever, and it is because of you. She teased, as Naruto's look of concern turned to confusion. She shook her head, and then said, You don't know much about girls, do you? Naruto looked down and away. He felt crushed, as he didn't understand what she was talking about. He felt a gentle hand touch his shoulder and he turned to see a concerned smile. For an instant he saw his own reflection in the girl's eyes. As Naruto turned, she saw herself reflected in his eyes. She saw the loneliness, the fear, and all the hatred that had been heaped upon her over the years for being a Jinchuriki. She remembered back to the fight between Suion, Shibuki and Naruto. Naruto had been covered several times with a red chakra. Could he also be one too, a Jinchuriki? She thought, as her studies had found that most villages didn't treat their Jinchuriki very well, even if they used them as weapons. On impulse she grabbed the older boy and embraced him. She noticed him freeze from the embrace but slowly relax. She then asked, Do you know what a Jinchuriki is? She felt him go stiff as a board. She signed and said sadly, So you're one too. Naruto was scared. The one question he wanted to avoid had been asked. How could he respond to this questioning? Her next question blew away all of his fears and answered his one question, Is she like me? He didn't know how to answer. As he looked down into her eyes, they held hope of acceptance, but they also carried the fear of rejection. Naruto closed his eyes and wrapped his arms around the girl who had embraced him where others had not. Fu became rigid herself, as she felt him embrace her, but then she quickly relaxed, as she saw that he had accepted her. So which do you carry? I carry Shichibi, the seven-tailed demon, she explained, as she closed her eyes and laid her head on his chest. Naruto was taken aback at the forwardness of this girl. The Kyuubi. I carry the Kyuubi, he admitted and placed his chin on her head. She snuggled into his chest in an attempt to both comfort him and be comforted. They stood there for a couple minutes, as all they wanted to do was to be held, as both enjoyed the moment. As with all good things, they must come to an end. They felt several chakra signatures appear around them. Both opened their eyes and saw that they were surrounded by Taki shinobi. What is the meaning of this, Kegan? Fu asked in an angry tone. A man with a small goatee stepped forward and knelt before the two. I'm sorry to disturb you, Naruto-sama, Fu, but the council requests your presence, Fu. Shibuki-sama will want to speak to you a little later, Naruto-sama. If you will accompany us, Fu, Kegan asked, as Fu broke the embrace. She looked at Naruto with a sad look, as if to say, sorry. Naruto smiled and nodded to her as the group left. Fu stepped into the council chambers and was immediately put on edge, as she saw the angry look on Shibuki. What are they up to? She thought, as she took the seat offered her. The old council member by the name of Shufu smiled at Fu. This put her even more on edge, as he was one of the elders that would always give her a hard time. He spread his hands as if to welcome her into the meeting and said, "Welcome Fu-chan." Fu bowed her head, as she accepted the welcome. "Thank you Shufu-sama. To what do I owe this summons to the village council?" she asked, not wanting to beat around the bush. Amuro smiled at her this time, and spoke, "Relax child, the village has a long-term job for you, and refusal isn't an option." This had alarms going off in Fu's head, as Amaru continued, "We want you to do the village a great service." Fu her head, "What type of service?" she asked, as she was not even certain she wanted to know. "We wish to have you tame the power of Shichibi, and the hero of Waterfall," Amuru replied. "Huh?" Fu asked, confused. Shibuki screamed, as he couldn't take it anymore. "They want you to seduce Naruto-san and have his child. They either want you to bring him into the village or bear his child for the village," he yelled in frustration. Fu stood so swiftly that the chair she was sitting in was embedded in the wall. She looked around the room with indignation. "You want me to what?" she yelled her question in indignation. Shufu moved his hands in an attempt to calm her down, and said, "Easy child, we ask this for the village. We also know you have feelings for the boy. Isn't that enough for a creature like yourself?" Fu was pissed. While she might not mind taking Naruto into her bed, she would have preferred it on her own schedule and not as an order from her village. The village had the audacity to order her to either win Naruto to the village or at the very least take him into her bed, ensuring that she became pregnant. She was both angry and confused, so she did the only thing she could think of, run. She left the chamber in tears. Naruto was working his meditation as he heard soft whimpering coming from close by. He opened his eyes to investigate, but he left his shirt and jacket behind as he proceeded towards the sound. He looked over the rock to find Fu crying. Naruto rounded the rock, knelt and placed a hand on her shoulder, only to be enfolded by tight embrace. Naruto not knowing what to do, he put his arms around her and began to slowly move his right hand down her head to the middle of her back in an attempt to soothe the crying girl. She began to openly cry and said, "Why does it have to be you? You of all people. I was hoping to maybe get to know you better before." She pushed her head into his chest. He felt the burning tears run down his chest and across his stomach. He squeezed tighter. "What about me?" he quietly asked. She squeezed him tightly and continued to cry. Before she spoke, "The village wants you." "Do they know about Kyuubi?" Naruto asked, as he felt her shake her head. "Then what do they want with me?" he asked. "Just hold me, Naruto-kun, please," she pleaded. Naruto smiled warmly, as he shifted position and sat against the rock. Fu quickly fell asleep in his arms, as Naruto smiled, as he saw steady rhythm of her chest moving up and down. Naruto laid back and looked up into the sky. "She is kind of cute. What would Sakura say if I gave up on her and started to look elsewhere? She is like me, and as such we do have several things in common. This is what I always wanted with Sakura, but she wouldn't ever allow this. Is this what it is to care for someone?" Naruto pondered his thoughts, as his eyes closed and he fell asleep. Naruto woke in the morning to find his shirt under his head and his jacket draped over Fu and himself. He looked around to find Jiraiya sitting on the shore of the lake with a fishing pole. Two small notebooks caught Naruto's attention as he groaned. "Ero Sennin, I'm not going to be part of your books, am I?" he asked, hoping for a negative answer, but prepared himself for the worst. Jiraiya chuckled and shook his head as he answered, "No Naruto, I'm not writing about the two of you. I'm happy you found someone to share your pain. No, I was worried that you had gotten into trouble, which by the looks of it you have. A good sort of trouble though, he said happily. Nothing happened. She was distraught and I tried to help, Naruto attempted in an attempt to defend himself. Jiraiya laughed at Naruto's reply, and said, "Not my business, as I'm here to train you and try to find the Shichibi." Naruto looked down at Fu. What if I said I had found her? I mean it. The slip didn't fool Jiraiya, but he wanted to play along. Really, where is it? It is said to be a strong earth-type demon. Fu was awakened by the conversation, but didn't want to get involved. She tensed as Naruto and Jiraiya spoke about Shichibi. Naruto felt her tense and looked down into her eyes. His words were gentle and warm. I won't betray you, as I know the pain of being a Jinchuriki. You're not alone. She snuggled into his chest even more, not wanting to give up the warmth that it offered. Jiraiya chuckled again, as he spoke, I know she is the one we seek. Don't worry, we don't want to take you from your village, we only want to talk to you. If that's all right with you, Fu-chan. Jiraiya asked warmly. Fu nodded, what do you want to know? Jiraiya nodded, as he acknowledged the question, how old are you? I'm 17, she answered. Jiraiya nodded again in response, when did you learn your status as a Jinchuriki? Last year when I made Chunin, they figured I was mature enough to know about it, she answered, her voice unsteady. Jiraiya's voice became solid and almost forceful, and asked, what do you know about Akatsuki? Fu looked up at Naruto, as he smiled down at her. Nothing. Who or what are they? She responded. Jiraiya looked over his shoulder and smiled. They are a criminal organization that are after the Biju. I haven't a clue why they are after them, but they appear to want them for some reason. They will extract the demons from the hosts from what I hear and then seal the demons when they are caught. Naruto, there has had a few run-ins with them already, he explained, as Naruto frowned and nodded to his comment. They are all S or a rank missing nin. Fu moved the jacket off of Naruto and herself. She then sat up, but left a hand on Naruto's bare chest. Jiraiya-sama, please help me to learn to control my Biju, she pleaded. Jiraiya turned and faced the teens, as he looked her in the eyes, he spoke, is it because you want to learn from me or do you have ulterior motive? Naruto looked confused at Jiraiya, as he felt Fu's hand on his chest clench. He looked at her and then back at Jiraiya. She sighed and tears formed in her eyes, as she spoke, I'm sorry Jiraiya-sama, Naruto-kun, it is both. Jiraiya nodded, as he watched her reactions, and said, go on, I'm listening. She took a deep breath and looked at Naruto, and she said, while I'm beginning to have feelings toward Naruto-kun, I've been given a couple missions from my village. Naruto looked at her in surprise, she is having feelings for me. His thought written all over his face, and Jiraiya chuckled at this. Fu giggled, as she looked kindly at Naruto's face. Her face again turned sad, as she continued, I also have been tasked with either convincing Naruto-kun to either stay or I am to attempt to carry his seed. She looked at Jiraiya, who at first looked surprised, then smiled lecherously, his mood finally rested on a scowl. Jiraiya scratched his head, he then asked, so what is it going to be? Training or bagging my student? Fu had the decency to blush, she then swallowed hard and answered, I'm leaning towards both as he is alone, as am I. It would be a match that would keep us from being lonely, she admitted. Jiraiya shook his head, and said, you can tag along with us and we can train you some, but we are going back to Konoha, he also has a girl who he likes back home, for your information. He was trying to test her resolve. She looked at Naruto who grinned and scratched his head, well, you see, she doesn't really see me yet. I'm hoping to wow her into seeing me, he said, hoping she wouldn't kill him for not telling her. She looked at Naruto and smiled warmly. Would you help me on my missions, Naruto-kun? She asked. Naruto nodded and smiled, and said happily, it's a promise, and I don't go back on my word. Jiraiya shook his head. Sakura and Tsunade are going to kill him for this. I have to save him from himself, Jiraiya thought to himself. Naruto, do you know what you just promised to do? He asked, knowing he had no clue. Naruto nodded. As he spoke, sure, I agreed to help Fu on her missions. Jiraiya could only smile and shake his head, as he explained, one of her missions is for her to have your child. 3, 2, 1, Jiraiya thought to himself as he counted down until Naruto figured out what he had just said. Naruto's, what, was heard for miles, as Fu and Jiraiya chuckled at his misunderstanding. Fu had gotten permission from the council to complete her missions while with Jiraiya. Fu wasn't sure if she should just jump into bed with Naruto or work on a relationship. Over the next week after Naruto had figured, and actually been told what her missions were, Fu and Naruto had gotten to know each other better. She found Naruto to be both funny and an idiot sometimes. As she delved further into why he acted like an idiot, she found that it was more from ignorance, rather than actual stupidity, for the most part, and sometimes it was because he was just being stubborn. She did what she could in that week to try to curb some of his ignorance. What pushed her over the edge was how Naruto got Jiraiya to actually train him. Naruto would transform into a beautiful blonde girl, the bad part was that she was. If you expect me to undress for you to train me Jiraiya, you're sadly mistaken. I will only undress for Naruto-kun when he is ready to help me with my mission, she said, as she smiled warmly at the blonde girl. Naruto swallowed hard, until he felt a hand touch his and squeeze hard, arrow senin that really hurts. Naruto yelled, as he released the transformation jutsu and began to rub his chest. Fu was confused. How did that hurt Naruto-kun? The transformation is only a genjutsu, she asked. Naruto sighed as he walked over to her and transformed. Here, touch them, they are real. Fu touched his chest and was amazed by the feel, and it was just like touching skin. This was not genjutsu. It was actual jutsu that transformed a person into something. This was higher level than the academy jutsu, which was a genjutsu. I agree, it is real, but we do need to talk tonight, she said, as she then turned to Jiraiya and said. Alone, and without a pervert present, she said, as Jiraiya wore a hurt look, but nodded his acceptance. Fu played their conversations about how it was to be a Jinchuriki over and over in her mind. She knew she might fall in love with him, but her being ordered to sleep with him took most of the fun out of trying to have a relationship. Naruto also went over things in his mind. Fu knew what he had gone through, as she had gone through similar things as a child. She was a couple years older than him, but she was sure that they could make it work, that is if he would give her a chance. She loved her village, but she said that she felt more at home with Naruto than in the village. Naruto was torn, as he wanted to eventually have an intimate relationship, but had been set on it being with Sakura for so long. Now a girl from another village that shared the same pain as him wanted to try to have a relationship with him, and was even willing to have his child, even though her village had ordered it. Naruto wasn't sure if he should be insulted and angry or honored that another village sought him in that manner. He knew he had a friend in Suna, Gaara, but was not sure how he would be received there. He continued to ask himself, what is Sakura-chan going to think if I bring her home and she learns about her mission? What about Ba-chan? Fu put a hand on his shoulder and brought him out of his daze. What are you thinking about Naruto-kun? She asked, hope in her eyes. Naruto smiled, and replied, I was thinking how many ways Sakura-chan and Ba-chan were going to kill me for bringing you home. Anger spread across her face, but Naruto felt that it wasn't directed at him. This Sakura-chan, has she ever hurt you? She asked pointedly. Naruto thought for a minute, and then replied, not really, she hits me occasionally, but I'm sure she doesn't mean it. Fu raised an eyebrow, and asked, you mean to say that she does hit you? He nodded. She continued her questions, when does she do this, and how hard? Naruto began to squirm in his chair, but he still answered, well, if I'm acting stupid or if she is angry with me, she'll hit me. As for how hard, usually I end up with a lump on my head, maybe two. Naruto could have sworn he heard Fu growl at his response. Naruto then saw a glint in her eyes. Naruto-kun, we are going out on a date, now, she demanded. Naruto could only nod, as she dragged him out of the room, only to watch Jiraiya smile and give him the thumbs up sign. He hoped it wasn't like the single date that he had been out with Sakura on. He did notice things, not all the time, but at times he could notice things others couldn't. Sakura had her mind on Sasuke the whole time, and wasn't really present even though he had tried to get her involved in the one-sided conversation. She just appeared not to be into going out, at least not with him, and with her being so distraught the next day, when Sasuke had run late the night before. Fu noticed Naruto becoming slightly depressed and frowned. Naruto-kun, please tell me what is wrong. Even if we only become friends and not lovers, I still want to be part of your life, so please tell me what is wrong, she pleaded. Naruto sighed, as they sat at a table in a local restaurant. We can discuss it over dinner. If that is okay with you? He asked in an almost scared tone. Fu nodded, as the waiter took their orders, but slightly scowled at her. After dinner arrived, Naruto talked about his days on Team 7, Fu seemed to hang on every word, and with this Naruto was in heaven. Here was a girl who listened to him, asked him questions, occasionally called him stupid, but she never hit him. Some of her questions did confuse him, like, why didn't you kill him when you had a chance? Or, how could you call a girl who beats you up for asking you out on a date, be a good catch? He understood that her questions weren't meant to hurt, but they were meant to make him think things over. They then discussed her adventures as a genin, and a chunin. Naruto found that while she had it easier, as a child in some ways, but she had a harder time as a shinobi. Naruto never thought he would have so much fun with a girl. While she was scary at times, she showed genuine affection towards him. He again wondered if what he felt for Sakura was infatuation or was him just wanting to be acknowledged. After dinner they walked along the beach and looking at the stars when suddenly he felt something warm touch his cheek. He looked to see Fu lightly kiss him and blush. Naruto raised his hand to his cheek and still felt the warmth of his blush and the moistness of her kiss that still lingered on his face. Naruto tuned to see her with her eyes closed and a smile plastered across her face. What was that for? He asked in a kind but questioning tone. She grinned at him and wagged her finger, while she said, because silly, I like you. Why else would I kiss you? But we hardly know each other, Naruto replied in a confused tone. She giggled at his confusion. Naruto-kun, how many friends do you have? And mean close friends? She asked. Naruto thought hard and could only come up with a small list, so he said, about 10 or so. Why? Name them, she challenged him. Naruto grinned at this challenge. Okay, there's Sakura-chan, he said only to be interrupted by her. Nope, she doesn't count, she is a prospective girlfriend and rival for your affection, and I don't like how she treats you. So who is next? She asked. Naruto frowned at having Sakura so easily discounted. Well, there's Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei. He tried to continue only to be interrupted again. Iruka is more like what would be called an older brother, but he's allowable, but this Kakashi fellow doesn't even seem to follow his own motto. He left you behind during the Chunin exams, and left you with a man who cared little for you. Sorry, continue, she said, as she took a seat at a familiar rock, and took on a blush over her face. There's Konohamaru, Udon, and Moegi, he said, waiting for her to interrupt, but after a minute where she only nodded. He decided to continue. Kiba, Choji, Shikamaru, are also my friends. What about that strange quiet girl that Sakura said followed you around? She asked, almost knowing that she might become more of a rival for Naruto's affection than Sakura, who seemed to care less for him around or gone. Naruto scratched the back of his head, and said, well, she is kind of weird, but in a nice way. She seems to always turn red, as if she had a fever, and sometimes she passes out around me when I ask her a question. Fu began to laugh out loud, very hard. Naruto was confused by her reaction to his description of Hinata. What's so funny? He asked angrily. Fu cupped his face and kissed him square on the lips. Naruto was at first shocked, but then he closed his eyes and returned the kiss. It continued for what seemed like an eternity. He didn't want it to end. He finally opened his eyes and saw a smiling Fu, as her red eyes gleamed with a fire that he couldn't describe. She likes you, like I like you, Naruto-kun, she answered. Surprise showed in his eyes, as he stammered out, but, who would? Like a person like you. She finished his question. He noticed the sadness creep back into her eyes, and it saddened him. Naruto-kun, you may not be the smartest person, but you have many qualities that a woman would love to have in a boyfriend or husband. You are devoted, to a fault I might add. You're very handsome, and strong. She more than likely has seen into your soul and sees someone she can look up to, and wants to become worthy of your attention. She likes you and wants your acknowledgement, in one form or another. You say she lacks confidence, but has a strong heart. Well, Naruto-kun, you have a strong heart too. She took a deep breath and then took his hands in hers. Naruto-kun, I think that I'm falling in love with you, and I'm sure that this Hinata girl is in love with you too. Let's face it, Sakura isn't in love with you, she's in love with her belief of what she believes this Sasuke guy is, and he isn't. From your descriptions and what I've seen, he's just an arrogant prick, who has had some small flares of goodness peeking out, she sadly said. I know it may hurt to believe that the girl you thought you were in love with for all these years doesn't love you. She may love you, but is nothing more than a friend or at best a brother. This Hinata girl and I both seem to like you, a lot. I know my mission is to have your child, but if you were to ask me to leave with you and never return, I would, she said with a straight face, and this shocked Naruto. Why would you betray your village? He asked, as he wanted to understand. Naruto-kun, you're worth more to me than this village that has not treated me well for most of my life, she admitted. While I'm loyal to Shibuki, the village has used and abused me for its own gain, and they don't treat me as well as you're treating me now. I could get a new start with you. I would even let you have Hinata as another wife if you wanted, so that you wouldn't ever feel alone again, she said, as tears began to fall from her cheeks. Naruto sat there in shock for what seemed like forever. He then heard a voice from behind the rock. I accept your retirement from the village hidden in the waterfall, Fu. Go and be happy with Naruto-san, Shibuki said from behind the rock. Naruto and Fu turned to see Shibuki and Jiraiya smiling at the couple. But how can you as leader allow her to just up and leave? Naruto asked. Sometimes a leader needs to look at what is better for the village, and sometimes the council is wrong. You're now free to either have his children or not, it is your decision, Fu-chan. I'm happy you found someone you can love and trust, Shibuki said with a kind smile. Can you marry them now? Jiraiya asked with a lecherous grin. Shibuki shook his head, and replied, "No, he isn't from my village. He's underage for marriage and I wouldn't want either of my friends to have you watch, as they consummate their marriage." Both teens scowled at Jiraiya, who just blushed and looked like he'd been caught. Naruto looked sadly at Fu, and asked, "So are you asking me to marry you and forget about Sakura-chan?" Fu kissed him gently on the lips and shook her head, and replied, "Yes and no, Naruto-kun, you can still chase after her if you like, but just remember that there are at least two girls, if not just one who thinks they love you and would be delighted to be your wife." Naruto smiled and hugged her tightly, as tears of joy began to stream down his face. Jiraiya turned to Shibuki, and asked, "Are you sure that you can lose a good chunin like her to Konoha?" Shibuki smirked, as he replied, "We're not losing her. We're gaining an ally with the next Hokage of Konohagachure no Sato. The council will say she is useless, and that her Biju is the only redeeming quality she has, but she is a friend and I want to see her happy. Also with her near Naruto, it will be harder for Akatsuki to hurt her or Naruto. I can convince the council that letting her go will protect the waterfall village from Akatsuki, and if bringing her happiness is a bonus for me and a couple of other people." Fu was beaming at the news that she was free to leave with Naruto. "So do you think your friends will like me?" she asked excitedly. Naruto chuckled at the turn of events and wasn't sure how to handle it. He knew Sakura was going to be mad that he had brought a girl home with him, but she did care for him, and wasn't afraid to show it. She was even willing to risk the wrath of her village to be with him. The thing that worried him was if she was right, Hyuga Hinata liked him and might not receive the news of him having a girlfriend very well. Also, he wasn't sure if having two wives was such a good idea. Fu's head was swimming. She was going to be allowed to leave her village and go with Naruto, and come what may. She knew then and there she had fallen for the boy, 2 years her junior. He was at time a little dense, but he also showed times of great insight. Naruto and Jiraiya spent the next day at Fu's house storing all of her stuff. Shibuki stopped by to both pick up her headband and also give her a couple of presents. One was going away present that she couldn't open until she was away from the village, and the second was a wedding present for Naruto and her, possibly Hinata if she joined the marriage. Naruto and Fu blushed at the idea of being married. Naruto nearly passed out when Hinata's name was brought up about being his second wife, much to Jiraiya's delight. At the end of the day the three got supplies and then headed out of the waterfall village. Shibuki handed Fu several scrolls just as she left the village with a wink. Fu smiled and kissed him on the cheek, as he returned the favor. Naruto wasn't sure how to handle it, so he just let it slide, as it being between friends. Naruto hugged Shibuki, but was given a warning that if he hurt Fu, not even the 9 tails would protect him. Naruto was standing in front of Fu, as both were wrapped in demon chakra and 2 tails behind each of them, wings in Fu's case. Both had animalistic features, and both wore similar grins. Jiraiya grinned as both had made great strides in controlling their Biju power. While both now could control 2 tails worth of demon chakra, the third tail seemed to be a hard one for each to control their minds. Jiraiya kept them going into the third tail and back to the second until they both would have to take a break. Naruto and Fu were having the same problem in that their emotions would take over when they got their third tail. Attempting to meditate while in that state was useless, as neither could stand to sit still long enough to hold the tail and they would have to start back with 2 tails. It appeared that their beasts wanted some control over their vessels after the third tail. Naruto during a spar began to grow a 4th tail. Jiraiya noticed what happened and quickly put a suppression seal on Naruto. Fu blushed, as Jiraiya stripped Naruto to see if there was any more damage than some skin peeling off of Naruto. Luckily Naruto was only missing a few strips of skin off his face and chest. Jiraiya wondered if Fu would also have the same problem if she went into her fourth tail. They bandaged Naruto up and he allowed the two teens to rest for a day. Naruto wasn't at full strength the next day, but was game for another spar if only in their normal forms. Jiraiya and Fu noticed that Naruto was a little sluggish and in some pain during the spar, but he didn't complain. The discussions every night were each set up to bring Naruto up to speed on several things: knowledge, thinking, and strategy. Not all of the discussions centered around them being a ninja, some were more personal, like how girls acted in certain situations. These discussions both confused and enlightened Naruto. He had to hit himself several times, as his memory pointed out how he could have handled situations better than he had. He came to realize that Fu cared and so did Hinata. Sakura was another story. He began to regret his promise made to Sakura in some ways, but also was proud of himself for trying to complete it even if she would never see him the way he wanted her to. Fu for her part got a fuller understanding of Naruto and how he had survived with nearly the whole village rejecting him. She also began to understand that no one had explained certain concepts to Naruto, like tact, love, discipline, and other things that a parent or guardian would have over the years. Naruto had turned out pretty good for a boy who was left to his own devices for the most part. Naruto was rough around the edges, very rough, but he also had a very caring heart. Fu looked at Jiraiya, and asked, why didn't anyone raise Naruto, even if he was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi? Jiraiya sighed, and replied, Sensei couldn't find anyone willing to take on the responsibility for Naruto, other than the orphanage, which left him to Sarutobi when he was 4. Naruto grew up in the same apartment since then. He would have the occasional caretaker, but none ever stayed or showed much concern other than what was required. They wouldn't talk much to him either, thus the reason for his refined speech. Fu giggled at Jiraiya's joke. He then continued, Naruto is an amazing kid. He learned one of the 4th Hokage's prize jutsu in a month's time, where it took the 4th 3 years to create, and me 6 months to master. Fu was amazed, as she knew what jutsu he was referring to. So Naruto grew up alone like me, but worse, she asked, as Jiraiya nodded and looked sorrowfully at a sleeping Naruto. So he didn't even have a friend? Jiraiya shook his head, and replied, from what I hear, he made some associations when he went to the academy, but didn't have a friend until he was placed on his team. He considers Uchiha Sasuke his friend, but that nearly cost him his life. Fu sighed at having already heard this story, but Jiraiya continued, because of the association he had with the Uchiha boy, and because of the Haruno girl, he believes he needs to bring him back, so that they can be a team again. He doesn't understand that even if he brings back the Uchiha, their friendship ended when Sasuke tried to kill Naruto. It's only because he had the Kyuubi did he survive the battle. With the Uchiha in Orochimaru's hands, and the promise he made to the Haruno girl, he is stuck in a hard place where he can't do much other than follow his goal and try and bring him back to Konoha. Jiraiya smiled at Fu. He then continued, that is where you come in. Fu looked at the man with confusion written all over her face. He chuckled, but said, if, as you claim, that you're falling in love with the Gaki, continue to teach him the small things in life so that he misses less. He thinks of me, like a father or grandfather figure, so not everything I tell him gets through to him. You have expressed interest in him romantically, and I know he doesn't have a clue how to handle that. There is more to him that meets the eye. Keep your eyes open and your mouth shut if you figure out what I'm telling you. Some things are done for a reason, whether right or wrong, there was a reason. Now go to bed, we'll talk more of this later. Also read this book, not one of my best sellers, but it will give you some insight into his mind, or at least I hope so. He handed her a book and rolled over and went to sleep. She examined the book for a minute under the light of the fire, and then put it away in her pack to read later. Naruto woke refreshed from a good night's sleep. He looked around the camp to find 2 other people rather than 1. He then remembered leaving the waterfall village with Fu, and all the memories associated with their meeting. Naruto involuntarily smiled, as thought began to come together. Fu liked him for who he was, and the surprising thing was that he had figured out with her help that Hinata also liked him. His one big problem was to do with Sakura, since she had shown no interest in him at all. He also noticed small beetles exiting Fu's silk pack she had carried on her back. He thought nothing of the beetles for the moment. He then sat up and walked over the fire and began to fix breakfast, the trout that they had caught last night. As he put the fish over the fire, he began to think on what he was going to do now. They were still 5 months out and he had a lot of questions he needed answered, and Fu was the only person who might even have a chance to answer them. He jumped when a slender pair of arms wrapped around him. "Hey Naru-kun, thanks for getting breakfast started," Fu said, and then kissed him gently on the cheek. Naruto relaxed, as he realized it was Fu who had hugged him, and he was sure she had noticed his body tensing up. "Sorry, I'm just not used to physical contact, at least from behind," he admitted, but Fu failed to release him. "Too bad, I like it, and if what you say is true, about this Hinata girl, both of you will have to get over your little quirks. I like physical contact and everyone needs it, especially we Jinchuriki, as we have led shunned lives. We are lucky to have found each other. If this Hinata-chan doesn't mind sharing you, we might all be able to get over our problems with dealing with people," Fu admitted. As Naruto's training progressed faster than before with Fu present, as she would help in explanations and with training where Jiraiya couldn't handle the raw power. The next 4 months were spent training and getting to know each other better. Naruto concluded that he would give Hinata a chance to know the real Naruto, and Fu agreed to share Naruto if she did accept him. Naruto also found out that Fu was a bug user like Shino, but with a twist, as her Biju was a beetle, she had some control of the beetles in her pack, and they did enter her skin, like Shino's did. She explained that it wasn't as deep an affinity as it was with the Aburame clan. The progress was further than they had expected, so Jiraiya worked on elemental jutsu. With Fu being an earth type because of Shichibi and had a slight water type affinity, so he worked with her on summoning earth chakra and then taught her a few earth jutsu. Naruto was another problem for him to work on. Naruto seemed to have a slight water and earth affinity, but it was almost completely masked by the wind affinity from the Kyuubi. Not knowing any wind jutsu, they decided to make a quick stop in Suna. The trio approached Suna and were stopped at the gates. Naruto got bored waiting for the guards to let them in, but Fu was able to keep him busy enough to not have to worry about him making a scene. After about 30 minutes, sand began to swirl around Naruto. He smiled and said, "Hey Gaara. Uzumaki Naruto, what are you doing here?" Gaara asked, as he raised his head showing his eyes under the cage hat. Naruto became ecstatic and embraced Gaara. "You beat me to the cage position?" he asked, as Gaara nodded. Kankuro noticed the slumped shoulders of Naruto and asked, "What wrong, Gaki?" Naruto lifted his head with a huge grin. "I'm happy you're able to get the people to trust you enough to be their cage," he replied quietly. Fu moved forward and squeezed his hand. "Got a girl, Naruto?" Kankuro asked. "Sort of. We both have similar problems and are learning about them," he replied, as he glanced at Gaara, who only nodded understanding. Kankuro scratched his head and said, "Huh. Never mind. So what are you doing here, Naruto?" Jiraiya took that moment to step forward and replied, my student was wondering if he could get some help with his wind affinity and possibly some jutsu to go along with it. So you're a wind user, Naruto? Gaara asked with a smile. Naruto nodded and replied, I have a strong wind affinity along with a paired weak affinity to water and earth. Who is your friend, as I'm familiar with Jiraiya of the Sannin? Gaara asked. Fu bowed and replied, I'm Fu, formerly of the village hidden behind the waterfall. So you're a missing nin? Kankuro asked. Fu shook her head, and said, No, I was given retirement papers from the leader of the village, so that I could travel with Naruto-kun and Ero Sennin, I mean Jiraiya-sama. Naruto and Kankuro burst out in laughter, as Jiraiya muttered, Damn, ungrateful students. So you have feelings for Naruto? Gaara asked and Fu immediately nodded. He then turned to Naruto and smiled. He then continued, I'm glad for both of you. I hope she treats you right, Naruto, because I wouldn't want my best friend to be hurt. Fu nodded and slipped under Naruto's arm and shoulder to give him a squeeze. Very well, I can allow Baki to give you some training in wind jutsu, but these will be the ones available in other villages, as we cannot give you Suna exclusive jutsu, Gaara explained. Naruto nodded and thanked Gaara. Thanks, Gaara, I mean Cage. Gaara nodded as he escorted the group to an inn and got them a couple rooms. I will see you later tomorrow, Naruto, and it was very nice to meet you, Fu-san, Gaara said, as he then bowed and then left. Naruto looked ready to burst with excitement until he felt a hand rest on his shoulder. He turned to see Fu, as she then kissed him on the lips. Naruto went into a haze induced by the kiss. That is a good trick, Fu-chan, Jiraiya said playfully. Fu blushed, but also wore a sly smirk. Naruto watched, as Jiraiya snored away that night. He got up and went out on the balcony. He noticed the lithe form of Fu standing on her own balcony. He took a minute to actually look at her form through her nightgown in the moonlight, and something hit him. The girl at the waterfall a couple years back, could that have been Hinata? The hair, the grace, could that have been her that was at the waterfall? He inwardly thought to himself. Suddenly he felt a hand touch his face, bringing him out of his stupor. Couldn't sleep? Fu asked, from right beside him. She had apparently jumped to his balcony. Naruto looked down and away, as he blushed profusely. Sorry, he meekly replied. She giggled into her hand and smiled warmly at him. What are you sorry about? She asked. Naruto pointed to her nightgown and blushed again. In the moonlight, it leaves little to the imagination, he said quietly, and then cringed. He waited for several minutes for her to hit him, but it never came. He finally looked up to see her blushing with her arms across her chest. Did you like what you saw? She asked meekly. He nodded slightly in the hopes of not being hit. Also, it reminded me of a mission, he said. She raised an eyebrow and lowered her arms. How so? She asked with a little possible anger in her voice. Naruto sighed and moved over to the table on the balcony, offered her a seat, and then sat down after her. We were on a mission to recover the rare Baikochu insect. It was rumored to be able to track anyone. Hinata-chan came up with the idea, he said with a blush, as Fu raised an eyebrow. He either ignored it or didn't notice it and continued. The mission comprised Hinata-chan, Kiba, and Shino. We were supposed to collect the insect and give it the scent of Sasuke's headband, so we could go get him. Fu nodded, as she knew this was a touchy subject for Naruto, but said nothing. He then blushed, sighed and then blushed an even brighter red. We hadn't made it to the area where the insects were supposed to lay their eggs, he said with a far-off look and a hint of a smile on his lips. I saw a beautiful girl dancing on the water near a waterfall. She was so beautiful, I felt embarrassed looking at her, but I couldn't take my eyes off of her. She moved in flowing motions, but all I saw was her silhouette. Until just now, I never thought it might be someone I might know, but looking back, I think it could have been Hinata. The hair was just like hers, but I didn't know she was so developed for a 12-year-old, he explained. Fu smirked and put her hand on his. I didn't know you were as much of a pervert as that one, she said in a teasing voice, as she pointed at the sleeping form of Jiraiya. Naruto immediately put his hands up and shook them in a submissive way. No, no, I didn't mean it that way, he exclaimed. She put on a mock pout and said, but Naruto-kun, you said you couldn't take your eyes off of her. Was it the same with me? Naruto suddenly became fearful, as he didn't know how to answer. He muttered out. Fu began to laugh. Naruto-kun, that look, she said, as she continued to laugh. Naruto let out a humph, and scowled at Fu. That wasn't very nice, he said in a hurt tone. She stood up and walked around the table, grabbed his hand and pulled him into a standing position. She then wrapped her arms around Naruto and kissed him gently on the lips. I was only teasing, so be quiet and take your punishment for seeing Hinata-chan, she explained, as they again kissed him, but then deepened it. Naruto not knowing what to do, so he followed suit and wrapped his arms around her. When they broke he was out of breath, but still asked, why didn't you hit me for what I said? Fu smiled and kissed him on the nose. Because silly, you didn't do anything wrong, and why should I hit you if you do something wrong? She asked in an angry tone. Well, Sakura-chan does it all the time, he replied, but felt a finger on his lips stop him from continuing. Let's get this straight, if you and I are going to see each other, you will forget about this Sakura girl, she seems like she has it in for you and wants to kill you, she explained. She isn't that bad, Naruto admitted. Fu shook her head and furrowed her brow. The only girls I want to get to know are Hinata-chan and Tsunade-sama. Sakura is your teammate, but from what you have told me, she hasn't been that much help in most situations and didn't take her kunoichi training seriously. Also, she hasn't staked a claim on your heart like Hinata-chan and I have. You long for her, but she ignored you or chastised you. From the story you told me about your attempt to get lunch with her when you became genin was rather revealing. You changed into that Sasuke guy and she thought you were an annoyance, but she only wanted from him what you wanted from her, she said, as she nuzzled into his chest. But, he attempted to say something, but she interrupted. I'm not done, Naruto-kun. While I don't think that she is evil, she has shown that she is more concerned for herself than your well-being. She knew that you liked her and in a way played upon that, so you would go after Sasuke for her. Sasuke to me, started with an ego and you were able to lessen it some. That was until the Chunin exams, where others showed him just where he stood. He was like a spoiled child who threw a temper tantrum when he didn't get what he wanted. For Kami's sake, he tried to kill you, Naruto-kun. While that may be a thing with the Uchiha, it isn't in the normal world. Please, Naruto-kun, I understand that you feel a connection to him, but he wanted to sever it, by ending your life, Fu said in a sad tone. But he is like my brother. I can't just abandon him. It's like Kakashi-sensei said, those who break the rules are scum. Those that abandon their comrades are lower than scum, he said. Fu looked into his eyes and he saw sadness. Naruto-kun, he abandoned both you and Sakura, she asked you to go and bring him back, as if you were the only one who could. You tried and didn't succeed. The boy tried to kill you for your trouble and worst of all, he went of his own volition. You can't force him to do what you want him to do, just like you can't force Sakura to love you. I like you, and I believe that Hinata-chan does too. Please give us a chance to see if we can make it work. I know that you're lonely. I can try to make sure that you're never lonely again. I can't promise it because you might reject me, but just give me a chance. You've given Sakura a chance, now it's our turn, Hinata-chan and me, she implored. Naruto nodded and looked into the room with Jiraiya and then back at Fu. She smiled and nodded her head towards her room. Naruto shrugged and nodded, as they both jumped to her balcony. She led him into her room and they laid down on her futon. She lay there with a smile on her face. As Naruto snuggled up to her back, they both fell asleep. Naruto awoke to a face full of lime green hair. He remembered last night and thought about the discussion the night before. I guess she is right about giving her and Hinata a chance. I know Hinata is weird, but could she actually like me? He thought to himself. He then realized that he was in the bed of a girl and she wasn't beating him. She had actually invited him into it. He knew she was lonely, but he wasn't sure why she felt so warm and comfortable to be around. He enjoyed training with her and he also enjoyed how she would help him draw the Kyuubi's power and not lose control so easily. He began to understand things that he didn't before. He was beginning to accept that Sakura had rejected him, not once, but too many times to count. Now he was being offered a chance to find possible happiness, if not at least companionship with two girls. The first was Fu, who he thought was nice enough, somewhat pretty, but had a nice personality and best of all she knew about what it was like to be a Jinchuriki. Over the last little while, they were getting closer, but he didn't realize it until this very moment. He noticed her breathing had changed and that she was awake, but did nothing to the arm wrapped around her torso. He felt her hand move, but not to hit him, it actually grabbed his wrist and pulled him in tighter to her. He also noticed that she had placed his hand on her. This both excited and frightened him. He made a desperate attempt to suppress his reaction to being so close to a girl who seemed to want his touch. Fu noticed his arousal, but did nothing about it. She felt whole, since this was the first male that had reacted to her in this fashion. She had slept in the sleeping bags of others in her village, but none had reacted like Naruto. While slightly uncomfortable to have an erection poke her butt through her night clothes, she didn't mind that it had come when she had moved his hands to her. His hand felt warm and cupped it gently. She knew that being a Jinchuriki meant that she might not find love, but she had a feeling that she might just find it in this boy. She did have to hold onto his wrist for a couple reasons. First, she feared that he would bolt, both from her forwardness and from their mutual fear of affection. The second reason was that it elicited a feeling deep down in her that she had longed for, to be wanted by a man. Naruto noticed a weird fragrance emanating from under the covers and couldn't place it. He remembered it somewhat, but it was only similar to Hinata's smell at the posts before the Chunin exams. Do you smell that? He asked innocently. Fu smirked, but shook her hair. What smell are you talking about, Naruto-kun? She asked, slightly turning, so that she could see him a little better, but not removing his hand from her. I don't know how to describe it, but I've smelt something like it before. A few years ago while I was talking to Hinata before the Chunin exams, you remember what I told you about that? He asked. She nodded and smiled warmly at him. I'm guessing you're smelling my contentment with you touching me, she said with a huge blush. He raised an eyebrow. Contentment? He asked in confusion. Her hand reached down and touched his erection, only to have him yelp at her touch. Sorry, that is a similar sign of contentment, Naruto-kun, she said, as she released his hand and slid under his arm, closer to him. He looked up and appeared to be in thought when she struck. She kissed him fully on the lips. It was awkward, but that was like being in heaven. Naruto's eyes went from looking up to wide and straight at her. She pulled back from the kiss and smiled meekly. Did you like that, Naruto-kun? He nodded dumbly in response. She then wrapped her arm around Naruto's shoulder and pulled him closer. She saw his eyes dart around her face. She turned her head slightly and connected their lips again. Naruto felt his eyes roll into the back of his head with the second kiss. His body went on autopilot, his lips and jaw worked the kiss to a level he couldn't understand. He was in heaven. He wrapped his arm around her and pulled her body closer to him. They continued the kiss for several minutes, only to break it because of a lack of air. They smiled warmly at each other while they panted heavily. The door opened and Jiraiya came in quickly. His face changed from worry to a devilish smirk in a matter of seconds. "So you've already started your new workouts?" he asked to the quickly blushing teens. He then continued, "You know if you come back with a child Tsunade will be pissed." Fu's jaw hit the ground. While Naruto growled at Jiraiya. "It's not like that," Naruto said in a poor attempt at a defense. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and asked, "Really?" Both teen blushed. But Naruto finally said, "Not yet anyways." His face turned beet red and he turned away in embarrassment. Jiraiya laughed heartily at Naruto's comment. "It's okay if you form a relationship, but I want you to be sure that it doesn't interfere with your training. Understand?" he asked with a warm smile. His smile widened and he said, "So no kids for a little while. Okay." Both teens nodded at this. "So sensei, can you leave so we can get dressed?" Fu asked in an annoyed tone. Jiraiya just nodded, tossed Naruto his pack and then left. The teens dressed quickly and left the room to meet up with Jiraiya. "Only a couple more months before we head back to Konoha U2, Jiraiya explained. He then opened a new line of discussion. "Fu, do you have a summoning contract?" Fu shook her head. Naruto brightened up, but then realized that having her sign the Toad contract might be counterproductive, seeing as how Bugs and Toads didn't get along so well. "No sensei, I don't, and Toad wouldn't be a good match for me. Do we know of any other contracts that might work?" Fu asked in a worried tone. Jiraiya chuckled. "There is a possibility. Near the country of stone there is rumored to be several summoning scrolls, each in a separate temple. If you'd like we could go there before we head back to Konoha," he said happily. Naruto looked at Jiraiya, as if he were crazy. "Doesn't Iwa and Konoha not get along?" he asked in a worried tone. Jiraiya smiled and replied with a grin, "Ah, it'll be alright. We'll be in and out in no time." Naruto was jumping between huge trees and avoiding kunai while carrying an unconscious Fu on his back. Jiraiya was carrying a large scroll along with his other one on his back, while avoiding another set of kunai. Naruto continued to do his jump and avoid, but then asked in a sarcastic tone, "In and out in no time. Right, and they kept on calling me the Yellow Flash, Reborn. What was that all about? No time. We need to get back through Kuso and into Fire Country before I can answer any of your questions," Jiraiya said in a nervous tone. The pair continued to avoid their pursuers, but to no avail. "Dang it, Arrow Sennin. They keep on picking up our trail. I had enough of this running and Fu needs some proper rest." Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto exclaimed and created about 300 clones. 2/3 of the clones changed into either Jiraiya or Fu and all of them grouped into threes. Each team headed in a different direction. The real ones headed up the tree they were perched on. A couple minutes later several groups of rock shinobi entered the area and then divided up and headed in several directions. Naruto applied chakra to his eyes in order to try and improve his vision. Jiraiya was about to move when Naruto grabbed his arm and pointed to a slight lump in the ground. "Good spot, Naruto," Jiraiya whispered. Naruto looked at Jiraiya and gave him a wide smile. Jiraiya looked at him surprised. Naruto tilted his head in confusion and asked quietly, "What's wrong, Arrow-sensei?" Jiraiya pointed to Naruto's face and whispered, "Your eyes have the same pupils as they do when you're using the Kyuubi chakra, but they're still blue instead of red." Naruto shrugged and pulled the chakra from his eyes. "Now are they back to normal?" he asked in whispered tones. Jiraiya nodded and kept an eye on the lump slowly moving around on the forest floor below. Naruto turned his attention to Fu and blushed. Her clothes were tattered and fortunately or unfortunately for him rather revealing. He pulled of his pack and then removed her top revealing her chest to him. He then pulled out one of his extra jackets and set it below her head, as a pillow. He then pulled out a first aid kit and began to treat the wounds on her stomach and chest. Several minutes later he finished with the bandages and then put the coat on her. He hoped she would understand his having to remove her top and not kill him. He was having problems getting the sight of her pert ass out of his mind, until Jiraiya put a hand on his shoulder. He nearly jumped out his skin, but didn't make a sound and turned to Jiraiya. Good job on the medical treatment. It appears that our friend has left and we can leave. Is she in any condition to continue? Jiraiya asked. Naruto shrugged. I haven't a clue. I'm not a medic and only know how to treat some wounds. If she hadn't gone into her four-wing state we wouldn't be in this mess. You knocking her out needed to be done, but I think that they went a little far in ripping her clothes, Naruto explained. Well, we were in their territory and we were taking a scroll from one of their abandoned temples, but I agree that slashing up her top was going too far. I just wish it wasn't 2 platoons that they had. We could have handled one, maybe another half platoon, but 2. Jiraiya quietly said, as he complained. He then pointed in a direction that was off from going straight to Konoha and said, we should head in that direction. We might run into 1 or 2 of them, but it won't be as many, since they are now scattered. Naruto nodded and carefully loaded Fu onto his back. Both males jumped to the next tree in said direction. Several hours later, after not running into any of the pursuing shinobi, the pair set up camp. Naruto placed Fu in the tent and carefully took off the jacket. He then also removed her pants and fishnet stockings. He pulled out his first aid kit again and took more of the gauze wrapping. He carefully removed the old and bloody bandages while watching out for the insects that seemed to come out of nowhere in her skin. He then noticed one leave the skin and could tell that they had set her skin up like a trapdoor so that they could leave and enter easily, but also keep her skin intact. He slowly ran his fingers across her skin and felt each of the trapdoors, but found that they appeared to be missing around her s. He surmised that it was similar around her nether regions, but didn't want to experiment right now. He carefully applied new bandages to Fu and noticed her shiver when he brushed against some of her skin. He pushed all perverted thought aside and returned to bandaging her up. He finished about 20 minutes later. She looked more like a mummy than the girl he thought he might be falling in love with. He then carefully put her into his sleeping bag and left the tent. So how is your girlfriend doing? Jiraiya asked. She's not my girlfriend, Naruto said defensively. Jiraiya chuckled, but said, don't give me that, Naruto. I can tell that you have feelings for her. I know you've kissed her on several occasions. That would lead people to believe that she's your girlfriend. We've never really talked about it. We enjoy each other's company, but we haven't said we love each other, Naruto said admittedly. So you do love her, Jiraiya said with a warm smile. Naruto nodded, but said nothing. Jiraiya put an arm on Naruto's shoulder and said, I'm glad you've achieved something I couldn't. See, I told you that we would take your mind off that Sakura girl. Naruto scowled at the older man, but understood what he meant. The two ate their rations and prepared some food for Fu, but made sure that it was in a liquid form, so that she wouldn't have much to do to eat it. Naruto opened the tent flap to find Fu awake. She was smiling, but for the life of him he couldn't understand why. He then noticed the mirror off to the side and the hesitant smile on her face. My friends tell me that you took very good care of me, Naruto-kun, she said in a sultry voice. Naruto smiled widely. as he lifted her to a sitting position and helped her drink her soup. I try my best, he replied with a slight blush. She finished her helping of soup and smiled meekly at him, while her hands were across her chest. She had them in an X formation, more like she was showing off her S instead of covering them. This confused Naruto, since he had covered her chest with bandages and only the general size of her S were evident. She then looked down, as if depressed, and said, "I'm sorry, I lost control." Naruto gently laid her back down and replied, "Don't worry about it. We got what we were after and we got away." She pouted and said, "But I wasn't any help. I don't want to be a burden to you, Naruto-kun." Naruto gently lifted her to a sitting position again, only to enfold her in a hug. "Shish, Fu-chan, you're not a burden." He rocked her back and forth while gently tapping her back, because he thought that rubbing it might aggravate her injuries. He knew from experience that going into the fourth state will leave the skin in tattered shape, and it didn't like to be rubbed. "I love you, Naruto-kun," she whispered quietly into his ear. Naruto could only nod and hug her a little tighter. Naruto woke up to find a warm body intertwined with his own. He opened his eyes, see a sea of lime green hair in his face. He chuckled lightly, as memories of the night before flooded back into his mind. He slowly slid out from Fu's arms and legs to see and hear her whimper at the loss of body heat. He then began to slowly remove the bandages from her face. He was careful not to aggravate any of the injuries covered by the bandage. Going into the fourth tail is always hard to recover from. It tears off sections of skin, but it also pulls blood from the host to create a faux body of the biju. In Fu's case, it was a rhinoceros beetle, with 4 wings for tails. The insects had left her body when she had reached her third tail, 2 wings and a tail. Naruto carefully observed the insects as they moved around her body in an attempt to fix the openings that had been damaged by her transformation. He did notice that her skin was healed, but was slightly lighter than it was before. He hesitated at removing the bandages around her chest area. He took a deep breath and lifted her gently into a sitting position. He then carefully removed the bandages. At first he ran his fingers along her smooth back to make sure that both her insect holes and the skin itself were fine. He then laid her down and did the same around her chest. His hands lingered a moment on the nipple of her right. He jumped slightly when a hand gently grabbed his and pushed it back down on her. He looked to see open red eyes, a blushing, but smiling face, and a look of something he couldn't quite put his finger on. "Sorry, I didn't mean to," he started to say, but was interrupted by her left hand putting her index finger on his lips. "Shish, Naruto-kun. I was enjoying it. Please continue," she said in a quiet, but happy manner. Naruto nodded and continued to remove the bandages and then gently move his fingers along the skin. He noticed her shiver and goosebumps appear on her skin on several occasions. He smiled at this. He then frowned when he looked down at her panties. They were stained with blood, but he hadn't had the courage or wanted to expose her than much. She saw his trepidations and grabbed his hands and moved them to the waistline and nodded to him. She lifted her hips to allow him to remove the garment, which he did. He moved his hands over her lower abdomen and threw her lime green hair there. He saw her whole body quiver at this, but didn't know what to think of it. He moved to her red silk pack and removed some new clothing. "That was incredible, Naruto-kun. You have a gentle touch. I'm sure Hinata-chan will also appreciate it. We should do it again sometime, soon," she said with a blush and biting her finger. Naruto had turned red and didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded to the girl. He then pulled the new panties to her feet. She slid them closer to her torso and he saw a feral grin on her face. Her knees were up in the air, but she then spread her legs revealing her womanhood. Naruto promptly fainted at her forwardness. She smile widened and then closed her legs and pulled the top of the sleeping bag back over herself and waited for Naruto to wake up. She heard a groan a couple minutes later, as Naruto began to wake up. He looked at her in both confusion and borderline fear. He said, his voice trembling. She nodded and replied, "Yes, Naruto-kun. I've revealed my entire body to you. Did you like what you saw?" He nodded to her question and then continued, "You will see more of it over the years." She removed the cover and gently made a circling motion around her belly. She then said, "I will carry our children here. If Akatsuki doesn't get us first, that is." Naruto looked at the girl in awe. She had not only declared her love for him the night before, but also declared that they would have children. His eyes began to tear up and he asked with bated breath, "Do you mean it?" She sat up, wincing at the effort and then enfolded him with her arms. She then kissed him passionately. When they broke she said, "Yes, Naruto-kun. If Hinata-chan will also agree to have your children, then I would agree to share you." She then kissed him again. A few minutes later the tent flap opened and Jiraiya said from outside, "If you two are done removing each other's tonsils, then we can get her dressed and we can head for Konoha." Both teens blushed and Naruto noticed that the blush on Fu extended down to her mid-chest. He thought for a minute and then nodded. He grabbed the panties and helped Fu get dressed. They then left the tent to awaiting Jiraiya. "Break down the tent and get ready to head out. Fu, come sit down by me for a minute," Jiraiya said. Naruto began to collapse the tent and prepare for them to break camp. Fu carefully sat down on the log beside Jiraiya near the campfire. "Yes, sensei?" she asked. Jiraiya smiled warmly at Fu and then asked, "So are you serious about the gaki?" Fu thought for a moment and then nodded. Jiraiya chuckled for a moment and then said, "You know about him and what he wants to do. I don't want to deter you from having a relationship with him, but you must understand that both of you are in danger as long as Akatsuki are around. You're both special and I know he cares for you, in his own silly way." Fu blushed, but then asked, "Sensei, why does he put so much of his heart into a girl who never will return his feelings?" Jiraiya looked at her like she was crazy. "Are you saying that he will not return your feelings?" he asked. Fu giggled and shook her head. "No, sensei, I think that he is learning to return my feelings," she said happily. Recognition appeared on Jiraiya's face. "Oh, you mean that Sakura girl? Oh, it's a long story which has to do with him being a Jinchuriki and not really growing up. She's a childhood crush and she longed for another," he said with a faraway look in his eyes. "That Uchiha boy," she said with a growl. Jiraiya smiled warmly and nodded. "Yes, you got it. So have you fallen for the gaki yet?" he asked playfully. Fu blushed and nodded. "I also want to bring in another girl so that he won't feel so lonely," she said with her head drooped towards the ground to hide her blush. Jiraiya tried to hide his joy at what the girl had said. "This girl and the gaki will be a goldmine for me on my next book. I am glad that I have the next one done already," he thought to himself. Naruto grumbled, as he went around and broke up the camp. "Damn lazy perverted sensei," he said under his breath, but loud enough for the others to hear. This elicited a giggle and a chuckle from the other two. Naruto then pointed to a small raccoon with a scroll on its back. Jiraiya and Fu both turned to the look at the courier. It stopped in front of Jiraiya and waited for him to take the scroll. Afterwards it disappeared in a cloud of smoke, notifying the three that the raccoon was a summons. He read over the scroll and scowled. Naruto became impatient and asked, "What was that all about?" Jiraiya sighed, looked at Fu and said, "Good thing we left Taki when we did." This caused both Jinchuriki to look at the sage in confusion, until he continued, "Akatsuki are on the move." Naruto growled, but stopped when he saw Fu shiver. He sat beside her and put his arm around her in an attempt to comfort her. She smiled warmly at him, as thanks for being there for her and knowing what she was going through. Jiraiya smiled warmly at the young couple and then said, "Well, we better get back to Konoha, so that she can be registered." The group finished packing up the camp and headed back to Konoha. Several hours later, Jiraiya and Fu were both nearly in tears from holding back their laughter, at Naruto becoming so impatient about them getting home. The guards at the main gate yawned at having one of the most boring, but potentially most dangerous jobs in all of Konoha. Kotetsu sensed a few chakra signatures and turned down the road. He thought he recognized two of them, but not the third. He was stunned that they were back, after all this time. He woke his sleeping compatriot and pointed at the trio entering the gates. "No way. Is it truly them?" Azumo asked with a huge grin on his face. "None other. Guess they're finally back," Kotsu replied. Tsunade was actually beginning to believe that Konohamaru was just a smaller clone of Naruto, minus the whisker marks, blonde hair and sealed demon. She rolled her eyes, as he went on about wanting to do a mission other than ranked ones. Sure, she couldn't blame him for not wanting to chase the daimyo's cat, but it was a mission that would allow the teams to build skills in the safety of Konoha. "Just who do you think you're, brat?" she asked angrily. "The future 7th Hokage," he replied happily. This caused most of those in the room to take notice, while Tsunade asked, "7th?" Konohamaru smiled wide and replied, "Yeah, boss is going to be the 6th, so I'm going to be the 7th." He then crossed his arms and puffed out his chest in a display that didn't impress anyone. Tsunade put her chin in her cupped, upturned hand and looked out into the village and wondered, "I wonder if they're back." "That would be great if Naruto Nissen were back," Moegi said happily. Tsunade smiled warmly at the statement, but then said, "Your team isn't quite ready for higher ranked missions. We will discuss this later. Until then, you're all dismissed." Sakura was walking down one of the village streets. Unknowingly, she was only a block away and heading in the opposite direction of her newly arrived teammate, Naruto. Konohamaru's team had caught up with the Kunoichi and they were chatting about missions, while she headed to the main gate to check on the latest list of people to enter the village. They were quickly informed that Naruto had entered the village and might want to seek him out. All four headed up the street that ran parallel to the way they had come. Naruto set down his backpack and ran up the concrete power pole. He then stood on the top and looked around and let out a gut-wrenching laugh. "It's great to be home, and I see that they have finally put Ba-chan's face up on the mountain." Sakura came running up and saw Jiraiya and a girl with green hair that she had never seen before. She then noticed the pair looking up the pole and she then caught sight of something that she hadn't seen for nearly 3 years. "Naruto," she said under her breath. She blinked her eyes to confirm what she was seeing, and when it registered, she said, "Naruto, it's you. When did you get back?" Naruto looked down and frowned for just a moment, but then put on a cheery smile and then jumped down. "Just now. Long time no see, Sakura-chan." Sakura was about to say something, when she noticed something different about Naruto. She had to look up to see his blue eyes. She looked at him and his face contorted into a quizzical look. "You've gotten taller than me, haven't you?" she finally asked. He watched her move her hand back and forth to compare their height. He smiled warmly and said, "Guess you're right." She smiled warmly and looked at him longingly, but failed to notice the look on Fu. Fu was angry, but only because she could tell what was going through Sakura's mind. "So, do you think I've become more womanly?" Sakura asked, trying to use a dainty demure in the hopes of eliciting a positive answer. Naruto chuckled, but then said, "Sure, but you'll always be the same to me, Sakura-chan." Sakura blushed profusely at his statement. He seems to have matured both physically and mentally, she thought to herself. Fu watched the pink-haired kunoichi with a discerning eye. She was also getting ready to defend her newly acquired boyfriend. Hurt him and you're dead, girl, she thought to herself. Konohamaru wanted to get Naruto's attention, so he said challengingly, "Yo boss, sexy jutsu." He was changed into a pretty brunette. He changed back and asked, "Pretty good huh?" Naruto chuckled lightly, as Fu rolled her eyes and Sakura's face took on a shocked and offended look. Konohamaru, I'm not a kid anymore and we're shinobi of the leaf and shouldn't use such a lowly jutsu as that, he said warmly. Sakura began to swoon and bit her fingertip. I guess he's truly matured, but I kind of miss the old Naruto, she thought to herself. Naruto raised his fist in front of himself and Fu rolled her eyes yet again, knowing what was coming. You need to grasp the trueness of the sexy jutsu, and learn my new more perverted jutsu. He exclaimed. Sakura was nodding her head, but then it hit her. Yeah, new perverted jutsu, wait, perverted jutsu. She thought, but then anger took over and she charged Naruto. You idiot, what do you think you're doing showing a new perverted jutsu in front of a lady like myself? She demanded harshly, as her fist connected with Naruto's face. This sent him flying down the street and finally come to rest with his head buried in the dirt and his legs sticking up, as if he were planted there, but with a trench to show where he had come from. Sakura clenched her fist and began to move towards Naruto to dish out more punishment, but was turned by a subtle voice, Sakura-san. She turned to see a girl wearing white and with lime green hair. She tried to react, but was quickly sent to join Naruto in a similar trench, right next to him. You know Fu, that wasn't necessary, Jiraiya said in a scolding tone, but then continued, you girls are frightening the children. Fu smiled warmly, but her voice was as cold as ice. I'm sorry Jiraiya-sensei, but that girl had it coming. Now to pluck the plants before they suffocate, she said to the group. She then proceeded to pull both shinobi out of the ground by their ankles. She tossed Sakura to the side and then cradled Naruto's head in her lap. It's all right, Naruto-kun. I'm here for you, she said lovingly, while glaring at the waking Sakura. Sakura shook her head clear of the cobwebs that seemed to have inhabited her mind after the new girl had decked her. That's right, that girl attacked me, she thought, as she rose to a fighting pose. All right, I don't know who you are, but you just attacked a shinobi of the leaf and will pay the consequences. Surrender and I'll go easy on you, she explained with a slight slur from the swollen lip. Fu gently set Naruto's head on her red pack from her back and then stood up. So what did you do to Naruto-kun when he returned and acted like himself? Kiss him, hug him, no. You attacked him, shinobi of the leaf, and nearly killed him. I was just defending him and making sure you didn't kill him, she explained. Kill him? I did that all the time when we were younger, Sakura replied angrily. No wonder I got a bad impression of you, Sakura-tem, Fu said angrily. Jiraiya cleared his throat and said, as entertaining as this is, we need to meet up with the Hokage. Now stand down, Sakura. Sakura glared at Jiraiya for a second, but then remembered who he was and bowed deeply. Forgive me Master Jiraiya-sama, she said apologetically. Fu relaxed her stance and then helped Naruto to his feet. I really don't like her, Naruto-kun, she said quietly, only to hear Sakura growl at her. The group left Konohamaru and his team and headed to the Hokage's tower. Several minutes of glaring at each other put Naruto on edge. Naruto finally having enough of the stalemate between the females walked between them. This seemed to calm both girls down, but he could still feel the heavy atmosphere between them. The tense air continued all the way up to the Hokage's office. They entered the office to find a happy, but perplexed Tsunade and Shizune. Fu bowed and handed Tsunade her transfer scroll. She opened it and began to read. Her expression changed from boredom to utter surprise. Is this correct, Fu-san? She asked, looking directly at the lime-haired girl. Fu bowed and replied, yes, Hokage-sama. That changes things somewhat, Tsunade commented, but then turned to Jiraiya and asked, so your trip turned up some results? Jiraiya looked offended at the question. Do you think we would have come back without having made any progress? It went great, Naruto exclaimed, and Fu giggled at his antics. Tsunade then smirked and said, while folding her hands in front of her, then show me these results immediately. Show you? Naruto asked in a confused tone. Tsunade took a deep breath and said, you will take on a particular man. I haven't sent him on a mission for the last few days and had him on standby, just for this reason. Your opponent will be. She was interrupted by a knock on the door. Come in. The door opened for all in the room to see two figures in the doorway. Hello, Shikamaru said in a bored tone, as he walked into the room with Tamari at his side. Sakura got somewhat excited at the visitors and said, Shikamaru and Tamari-san, look who's shown up. Tamari and Shikamaru looked confused until they recognized the blonde hair and orange. Naruto, Shikamaru said in a confused tone, but then his attitude changed to excitement. That's you, isn't it, Naruto? Shikamaru, Naruto exclaimed excitedly. That is the shrimp from before. Tamari thought to herself. Fu moved behind Naruto, as if to shield her from the new entrance. So you finally made it back, and who's the girl? Shikamaru asked happily. She's a really good friend, Naruto replied happily. He then began introductions, Shikamaru, Fu-chan. Fu-chan, Shikamaru. This is Gaara's sister, I think. I'm sorry, I never really got your name. Tamari looked rather annoyed at the comment, but said, I'm Tamari of the desert, sister to Gaara, the Kazekage of Suna. Naruto chuckled and said, yeah, I know. I talked to him a couple months ago. He did mention that you're on assignment here in Konoha doing the Chunin exams. Yeah, that's right, Tamari replied. You seem smarter than before. So have you changed at all? Shikamaru asked. Sakura replied, nope, not at all. Naruto appeared depressed by the lack of support from Sakura, but was quick to grab Fu's arm, as it swung towards Sakura. Everyone laughed until they saw the swinging fist from Fu. Sakura-chan, be nice, and you too, Fu-chan, Naruto exclaimed. Does that mean that you'll be my opponent? Naruto asked Shikamaru. Shikamaru looked at him like he was crazy and asked, opponent? What do you mean opponent? I just came here to deliver some documents. Naruto moved closer to Tamari and then shook his head and turned to Tsunade. So who is my opponent? Since Gaara would be mad if Tamari were the one you wanted me to fight, Naruto explained, much the annoyance of Sakura. Tsunade pointed out the window and said, he's out there. Naruto moved to the window and opened it. He looked outside and heard Kakashi ask, you've gotten taller, haven't you, Naruto? Kakashi-sensei, Naruto exclaimed, as he jumped out the window. He then continued, you haven't changed a bit, oh yeah. He then reached into his tool pouch and pulled out a book. He then handed it to Kakashi and said, hey, I've got a present for you, sensei. No way, Kakashi exclaimed, as he examined the cover of the book. Naruto handed Kakashi the book and said, the latest version of Come Paradise, in 3 years. I found it boring, but knew that you liked this type of stuff. Kakashi opened it as if it were a holy text. For him, it was. Naruto was able to snicker at his sensei. Fu rolled her eyes at this display. Sakura wore a look of warm remembrance. Tsunade smiled warmly and then cleared her throat. Naruto looked back at her and she nodded. He turned and asked, "So you're the one I have to fight?" Kakashi smiled warmly behind his mask and said, "Yes and no, Naruto. Both you and Sakura will be my opponents. But I'll see you both later at the training grounds early tomorrow. See ya." With that he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto sighed and then moved back into the window. "So if we're fighting Kakashi-sensei, then what will we do until then?" he asked. "Give me an introduction to Fu-san," Tsunade said warmly. Jiraiya cleared his throat and asked, "You're Chunin, Sakura-san?" She nodded at this, so he continued, "Fu is similar to Naruto." Sakura gasped at this revelation, but also saw the look of worry run across Fu's face. She is the Jinchuriki of Shichibi the seven-tailed beetle. She and Naruto have been working together for the past 6 months, trying to get a handle on their Biju. So will Fu-chan be able to join our team and work with us? Naruto asked excitedly. This caused all the women to look at Jiraiya and Fu with caution. She has been given to Konoha, for several reasons. Akatsuki is one of them, but the other you will have to ask them, for it isn't for me to say, Jiraiya explained. Sakura glared at Naruto and moved towards him threateningly, while exclaiming, "Naruto." Fu stepped in front of Naruto and asked angrily, "Would you like some more of the same as before, Sakura-san?" Sakura's glare became a death glare. "You would attack a shinobi in front of the Hokage?" she asked, making a point to try to goad Fu into a fight. "You have thrown the first punch on Naruto-kun, no less. Don't talk to me about attacking a shinobi of the leaf. You're guilty of such, and from what I've heard, multiple times. You may possess strength, but you lack wisdom to use it where Naruto-kun is concerned. An attack on him is an attack on me and will be dealt with appropriately. Do I make myself clear?" Fu asked in a sickly sweet voice. Tsunade had had enough of this posturing from the two girls and finally put a stop to it by saying, "Now that we are deciding pecking orders, I'm at the top and both of you are below me. Since Fu comes from Taki as a Chunin, we shall give her the same rank. She will also be put on Team 7 on a probationary basis. Also, the information about her being a Jinchuriki is set as classified information, so no one outside this room other than your sensei will know about this. Do I make myself clear?" All three teens stood at attention and replied sharply, "Yes, ma'am. Now I suggest that you three get to know each other again and prepare for your fight with Kakashi," Tsunade suggested, as she waved her hand to the three, thus dismissing them. Naruto was feeling a little bit uncomfortable at the moment. Sakura would smile sweetly at him, but then look at Fu and give the girl a glare of death. Not sure if he could figure out how to calm the girls and prevent a fight, he just silently kept his position between the two. "So Naruto, did you learn anything good on your trip?" Sakura asked. "Sure did, but we will have to save it for the test," Naruto said happily. Sakura's face then wore a pout and she asked a little too sweetly, "Please, Naruto, tell me what you learned." Naruto knew now this was going to be a long lunch meeting.